Let's look at the picture because, I mean, it can get confusing. We have some state governors who have come out to say that the old Naira note still remains legal tender in their states. For instance, in Ogun State, we heard from the governor there who had said that any bank that refuses to receive the old Naira notes will be shut. We also had a similar command or order or instruction or directive, whatever you want to call it, in Borno State. And then you also have where, of course, the president came up to say the only legal tender as part of the old one will be 200 Naira. The old 200 Naira is still a legal tender from what the president, that's it, you have it there. It's still a legal tender, even though at this time it is also a scarce commodity. Now, you also have the courts, the Supreme Court gave that order that this note should still remain legal tender, at least until now, the 22nd of February, when the Supreme Court is supposed to give judgment on the matter. Then you have the other hand, where the CBN had said that you should return, now in this case, the 500 and the 1,000 to CBN offices in every state, and that is supposed to end today. So a lot of things for Nigerians to grapple with. And we have the elections coming up next weekend. Now, with all of these protests and all of this anger and frustration, what happens to the election? And we don't have to think very far away to see, if we do not hold that election, some of the dangers that the economy and the country may face. A lot of things on the plate of Nigerians to chew at this time. From here on Channels TV, we ask you to please express your anger and frustration peacefully and not destroy properties, because eventually it will come back to haunt us. We'll still have to use the bank afterwards. But anyway, let's talk about how this is affecting businesses from the eye of Dr. Muda Yusuf, is Chief Executive Officer of CPPE, joins us virtually from Lagos. Good morning, Dr. Yusuf. How is it in your area? The old notes, are they still in circulation? Are you able to get the new one? How does it look like? What's the picture?
Well, the situation is still extremely very bad. Those who hold the old notes can no longer use them because the CBN had not reversed its position on the old notes. So the old notes are no longer legal tender. Many people are stuck with it. Well, we have been told that they have to go to central bank and all of that. But the whole place is in a very chaotic situation. And it also underlines the lack of understanding of the wider implications and the magnitude of the challenges that this whole currency redesign has created. The issue is not even so much the redesign. The bigger issue is the mopping up of the cash. The central bank has said that it has mopped up about 2.1 trillion, and it has released into circulation maybe around 300 billion or 400 billion. So already we have a fundamental problem of shortage. So no matter what we do, for as long as you have that huge deficit, this crisis will continue. Because you cannot take people's money to the tune of almost 2.1 trillion and you release just 300 billion. I mean, how do you make up for the difference? That's a major deficit. So whether you are talking of 200 Naira note and all of that, that crisis will remain. And how do you explain to people that you took their money for purposes of exchanging it and you're not giving back them their money? And some of them to even use the online situation, the online outlet is also very, very congested. And in any case, we have to reckon with the kind of economy that we are running. Many people are in far-flung places, in rural areas. Many people travel several kilometers to come and deposit their money. Many of them are even unbanked. So we don't force cashless on citizens. It is not done. So my reasoning of this is possibly that this is essentially a political thing to aim at money laundering and all of that. If that is the case, then that's a completely different kettle of fish. But the situation is still very, very chaotic, and something needs to be done urgently about it.
You don't see this directive by the president that the old 200 Naira note be used, be allowed to run at least till the 10th of April. You don't see it easing things off, especially for those petty traders?
It cannot ease it. It cannot ease it because 200 Naira notes is less than 10% of total currency. And because of inflation, a whole lot of transactions are taking place with 500 and 1,000. Inflation has devastated the value of money. How many people are using the 200 Naira notes? And already there's a huge deficit of people's money that the CBN is sitting on. That is why people are so angry. How do I have money that I cannot access? That is not acceptable. We are dealing with a country of over 200 million people. We have states that almost half of their local government don't have banks because of security. So this policy, it may be well intended, but there are a whole lot of assumptions that cannot stand, assumptions that are not valid. If you don't quickly go back to what the Supreme Court has said, and that's another matter. If you had a pronouncement by the Supreme Court that this order should exist for some time, and yet the other, that's a major concern. They are talking of rule of law. So this 200 Naira cannot solve this problem. The best way to do this is to go back to what the Supreme Court has ruled on. Old and new should coexist and gradually we withdraw it. And if you are looking for vote buyers, we should use intelligence. We have institutions of state that are supposed to zero in on those people. Holding cash is not an offense in this country yet. Because the implication, the way this is coming as if we are criminalizing the holding of cash. That is why we have the NFIU, the Financial Intelligence Unit. We have the Special Control Unit on money laundering. That is their job. To look at the transactions, and if there's any suspicious transaction, you zero in on them. You don't subject the entire country into this wholesale impediment or constraints or repression. It's not fair. You zero in on people that have suspicious transactions. Otherwise, if people are giving you money for swapping, you give them back their money. If you don't have the new one, you give them back their old note, let them go and continue their lives. But what is happening now is that this thing is seriously affecting the lives of people and the livelihood of people, especially the downtrodden. That is the most unfortunate thing. So both the president and the CBN, they are understating the scale of the challenge that this problem is creating. And it's nationwide. Even though people are trying to politicize it about vote buying and all of that. Of course, which of the transactions are for vote buying? Which of the transactions are legitimate? That's the problem of intelligence. We cannot have a sweeping measure for everybody, including innocent people.
All right, Doctor.
All the working capital of some people have been locked up in the bank.
All
and
right.
The banks still don't feel safe. Many of the banks are now locked up. And we have an election coming up next week. This is very inappropriate.
All right, Dr. Yusuf, if we see the scenario in Edo State, where we see the CBN now working with the POS, which was a question I asked the governor when we had the meeting with journalists about 2 weeks ago. We see them now coming down to work with the POS. Do you see that as a viable solution to at least deal with the problem at hand?
Those solutions are not sustainable. They are not sustainable. Because if the CBN itself has admitted that you have practically seized almost 70% of the cash that was deposited, all this situation can't solve the problem. How can you take out 2.1 trillion and say you release back 300 billion? All these things are cosmetic. These problems will not go away. This currency thing is concerned. People must have access to the money that they have given you. They are not begging for overdraft. They are not begging for loan. It is their money. And if you have any evidence that this transaction is for vote buying, you isolate those ones. But let the ordinary Nigerians continue with their lives. That is why there's all this agitation, and people are trying to blackmail and say it's political. Can't you feel the pain in the eyes of everybody? If you're having this situation in a city like Lagos, Abuja, what now happens in the rural areas? Many of them have been the economy has been completely paralyzed, completely. This is not the way to manage this kind of transition in terms of currency. This is not the way at all.
All right, Dr. Yusuf.
I've had argument that this has some economic outcome, inflation, foreign exchange. All those things have no basis in economics. They have no basis. That cannot give us any outcome. What we are seeing now is economic repression. That is it. If prices are coming down, they are coming down because people don't even have money to buy at all. People are selling at a loss. Is that the kind of economy we want to encourage?
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, we've seen manufacturers' confidence, of course, drop in the midst of all of this. Yesterday, we talked about investors from the foreign scene, diasporans. How do you see this affecting, for instance, by the end of February, early March, we'll be expecting inflation figures, expecting PMI, you know, expecting MPC even next month. How do you see this shaping the conversation around that time? Because these are the details that will make up whatever data we get at that time.
Well, first of all, when you talk about inflation, because I've seen some people, even including the CBN, saying that because of these policies, prices are coming down. That is like talking about the piece of the graveyard. Because if you paralyze the entire economy and nobody is buying, of course, prices will come down, exchange rates will come down. But that is not an economy. It's like the piece of the graveyard. So those are not the indicators to look at. Because the indicators to look at is how vibrant, how are you able to restore vibrancy in the economy. Because there cannot be an economy if there is no transaction. If the payment system at the retail end have been practically paralyzed, you can't have an economy. And I've said this consistently. Currency as a percentage of money supply in this economy is just about 5%. 95% of money is still in the banking system. So if you cannot influence the economy with 95% of money in the banking system, is it the 5% that will make the difference? So the whole idea is completely misplaced. And just as I said, if this is about politics, then we need to state it clearly. And if that is what we want to achieve, let the Financial Intelligence Unit and the Special Unit on Money Laundering, let them do their work. Let them isolate transactions that are suspicious. And let innocent Nigerians have their cash back and go and be doing their business. But this is paralyzing the economy. It's economic repression. It's very unfair on the ordinary Nigerians. Very, very unfair. And yet we have an election coming up in a week's time. What are we going to achieve from all of this? For me, it's completely misplaced. Completely. Especially the approach that we have adopted.
So, Dr. Yusuf, we have, as you have noted, what looks like conflicting situation. So we have, of course, the Supreme Court order, and then we have the president saying that it's just 200 that is legal. And then, of course, we have the state governors coming to say, some state governors have threatened banks if they refuse to take the old notes, you know. What does this do to the general business environment of Nigeria? I know that a lot of countries, when it's close to the election, there's a lot of uncertainty. But can this pass as just one of those uncertainty times because of the elections, or do we have bigger things to worry about when we take a look at the bigger picture?
The bigger thing we need to worry about is our elections. Because a lot has gone into the preparation of these elections. both on the part of the electoral body and on the part of the political parties. A lot of resources have been committed to by truncating the entire process. That is my biggest worry. Because this is a major disruption, not just to the economy, but to our transition program, in which we have invested a whole lot. So it's already normally, typically, an election period comes with a whole lot of uncertainty. Naira design policy, which is completely uncalled for. If you are looking for vote buyers, if you are looking for suspicious transactions, let the agencies of government do their work. You have the Financial Intelligence Unit. Their duty to monitor transactions in the banks, whether it is online, whether it is physical cash. You have the Special Unit of Money Laundering. That is their job. The CBN cannot come with a sweeping approach of mopping up people's cash. Innocent people. That is the cash they are using to do business. That's the cash they are using for their livelihoods. You mop it up and you are celebrating that you have mopped up 2.1 trillion from the economy. And so what? Is that a good thing to be saying? In an economy that you have a large rural economy, where you have a large informal sector, that at the over 30 million people don't have bank accounts. How do we impose that kind of policy on Nigerians? It's very, very unfair. I must say, very, very unfair. And it's unfortunate that we have to impose this kind of crisis on our reduce the whole discussion into politics. This is not politics. We can see the evidence from the streets. It's not politics at all. This is a violation of people's rights.
All right, Dr. Muda Yusuf, the Chief Executive Officer for the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on this issue, which is obviously a very burning one in the economy at this time.
Thank you. Thank you.